The 11 Bang Bang Reload Show starts now.
All right, hello everybody out there. This is Garrett here with the 11 Bang Bang Reload Show. Merry Christmas to everyone who's watching. Tonight we have special guest, the Wild Snapper, on the bottom here, and we're going to discuss collecting, maintaining, and shooting original antique firearms that are over 100 years old. Anything from the 18th, 19th century, and even earlier. Over here on my right is Ethan, of course. He's going in and out because he is in an undisclosed location and filming off his phone. So, but we're glad he could come in. He is the head of the 11 Bang Bang channel. I'm just the substitute. But anyway,
that's up for a debate.
Anyway, so tonight, like I said, we're discussing antique firearms. And since both of these guys own more antique firearms than I do, I'm going to be popping in and out with comments, or should someone mention the word Colt, I will probably show up. Anyway, let's start off with, go ahead, Snapper, take us away with your latest original firearm.
Well, the newest of the new, which I've done a little bit of talking about already, is the 49 pocket model. And nice. I've had to do a lot of work to this. As a matter of fact, you guys are a lot of the reason why I even own this gun. I did a video because the original nipples were stuck, and that's like a really big pet peeve of mine. Take the nipples out. Like, dear God, take the nipples out. Because when these guns get old and they don't take them out, they do not come out. I actually had to use a milling machine to cut the head off and completely drill it out and retap it. Every single one. And I might have done a cardinal sin, but I think it's an upgrade just because I like shooting them. I bought some original Colt nipples for it. And before I was going to retap the holes, I realized that they were for number 9 caps that aren't really made anymore. And they're really small. So I ended up tapping it for Pieta nipples, just to make it cheaper, easier. And I can also use aftermarket, nipples, and I can also use just off the shelf caps. So I like it. And I'm pretty happy with it. I haven't got to shoot it since I've done it. But other than that, it's pretty much up and going. I've done pretty much everything to it, and I even got a video on how to. When you get an old gun, one of the first things you should really do to it. It's called preserving an antique firearm, and I learned this from a museum, and I've actually seen this done to an original Walker. You basically, the way they used to blue guns back in the day, you would rust. You'd put this solution on it, and the gun would rust. And then you would boil it in distilled water, and then you would what's called carding it, which would be there's a carding wheel, but basically you use something like triple-aught steel wool, or like a rag, and you just rub a lot. And with these antique guns, even if it looks great, I still recommend completely taking it apart and doing this. It doesn't hurt it in any way, shape, or form. And if there's any rust anywhere, even under the top surface, that brown patina everybody likes is actually just a layer of oil and rust. And that's why if you ever go to a museum, you don't really see that brownish patina. Everything's more of a silver or black. And that's because they do this exact step, and it makes a huge, huge difference on maintaining the firearm and keeping the firearm in a state that could be used for another 100+ years.
Yep. That's something I think is funny. You'll get a lot of these collectors getting out there, and you'll go to do something to the gun to preserve it, like what you're saying, and they'll be like, well, you just ruined the collector's value of this piece. Well, maybe so, but now that piece is going to last for, like you said, another 100 years. Rust is corrosive, and if you leave it alone, it will eventually start putting pits and things.
And one of the guys that I watch a lot here on YouTube, he has a kind of a really good saying: when does the lack of maintenance turn into patina? And that is so true. That beautiful brown color that everybody likes is not what you really want. It really is just a layer of rust. Anything that's brown or orange in color is an act of oxidizing rust that's literally eating the surface. Now, once you heat this rust up, it turns into a different oxide of rust, which is black. And that's exactly what bluing is. It's just a rust layer that's protecting the metal underneath. And it feels really weird to do it, throwing a gun into a pot of boiling water like you're making a soup. But I'm telling you, I've seen this done on $1 million Colts. And if it's good enough for that, and this is what, you know, the museums that collect these firearms do, it's good enough for any gun that I own.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I've done that to a few of them, and like that that original militia musket that we showed here recently, that was one that it was in pretty good shape, but we went ahead and we polished it up even a little more. I mean, we didn't get it back to the white, but we did some work on it, get it nice and cleaned up, because that doesn't have any protection on it. It's whitened iron, you know, it's iron in the white.
Right.
But yeah.
And that was something I found that was pretty interesting about the Civil War. And I believe World War I was the same way. As when they would issue cleaning kits, it was basically just steel wool. They were issued steel wool, and they're just, you know, a scallop pad. And they would strip the guns basically to the white, and that's how they, you know, they kept them. It's very rare to get an original Civil War piece that it actually has any bluing on it if it was actually a combat firearm.
Same with the Revolutionary War and pretty much all the 18th century guns. The British in particular liked issuing out bags of brick dust. And I learned that from British muzzleloaders. They would take and they would use that to polish the steel up real good, or the iron, excuse me. Not a whole lot of steel in the old flintlocks, but yeah.
Same. So tell us about that new Revolutionary War piece you got. That is extremely interesting. I'd love to hear more of that story if you got.
Let's get into that in a second. Just a second, Ethan. I want to give you a few questions here every 5 or 10 minutes while they're coming in. You guys in the chat, go ahead and sound off with anything. And if you got questions, ask them. If you got a comment, put it out there. By the way, Cash EDC is in the room, Ethan. And
howdy.
And Snapper.
Howdy.
If you guys haven't seen Cash EDC, you guys that are out there in the chat, go over check out his channel. Lots of good AK-47 Russian style weaponry over there. And I just saw his collection update, and it keeps on growing.
That's the plan. That's the plan, at least.
Hey,
you know, there's a contest. Who dies with the most guns wins.
Yeah.
Yep.
Hey, Americans out there, thank you for coming by. He said you got to level Colts. I can't afford real ones, so I got clones. Nothing wrong.
That's okay.
That.
That's how we all started out, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just in case, I like that name. Says best antique firearm ever made was Nazi SS belt buckle gun.
I think I know what he's talking about. The little, you push a button and it would flip out.
Yeah, it's like a little 22.
Yeah.
Trooper Cody's Light Horse History says howdy from Australia. There's one question or two up here that I wanted to get to. We actually read this one before the chat started, and this is from Caleb Blackwell. He said, I remember watching a video of you guys, being Ethan, fixing a Schofield, and during the video, a demonstration of a not-in-time Model 1.5 was shown, Smith & Wesson Model 1.5, and that got me wondering if you made a video on fixing that. Ethan, you can answer that, and I will get out of you guys' hair again.
So, no, we didn't make a video of fixing it, but we did fix it, and it was just the same technique, essentially. We just kind of went and we took and we pinged the hand a little bit, and it did not take much, and it got it right back into time. And I actually started shooting that Smith & Wesson Model 1.5 video before I left, but due to certain issues like me catching COVID, I hadn't gotten it finished. So I don't know. I maybe, depending on where I'm going, if I can find a spot where I can set up and make a video or two, I may be doing the talking head portion of that and having Caleb or Garrett shoot the gun, and we might see how that goes. But yeah, we got that pistol fixed too. It was just the same process, really. I also put a Smith & Wesson Model 3. There you go. Yeah, that's me shooting it. Is this the... yeah, I don't know what's going on here. Yep. Yeah, it shoots. And boom, there you go. But anyhow, I put a Smith & Wesson Model 3 Russian into time too, and that gun was just horrible because somebody had tried to make it into a slip gun, and that consisted of taking, and I didn't make a video on it either, but we had to weld because they had filed off all the notches on the hammer to make it a slip gun. So
that must have
not
been
only
fun.
yeah, we rebuilt that part of the hammer up with a TIG welder, and we went and we made new notches in it. It worked pretty good. But
Yeah, I've done that a couple times on several of my firearms as well. And that's always fun, especially because I got the whole manual for, actual cutting the notches. And being that I'm fortunate enough to have a milling machine and lathe, I actually have the abilities to do it precise with all the exact measurements and getting it exactly like it was new again.
I was doing it all by feel and with a file, doing it by hand. And I would take off a swipe or two, and then I'd put it back together and try it, and I'd take off a swipe or two. I think I had over 80 hours on the lock work on that pistol. And I can take apart a Smith & Wesson No. 3 Russian with my eyes closed now.
Yeah, a matter of fact, how many times I've taken apart a Colt and put it back together in one day, I don't even want to admit. I actually went and bought this little electric screwdriver just because I was so tired of it taking longer and longer and longer and longer. Yeah, it was a little low torque where you break it loose first, and I actually got a little gunsmithing bit for Colts for it, and it's great. I love that little thing. If you guys don't mind, real quick, I'd like to give a shout out to Trooper Cody. As a matter of fact, he's a YouTuber as well. Dude's really got a good channel. Lots of really good information, and I recommend him highly.
Yeah, let's stand up here for a second. Yeah. Well, we got one of our subscribers, first Minnesota sharpshooter. I was randomly looking through videos today because we're on leave, but we're not allowed to leave. You know how that is.
Of course. Good times.
And so I was looking at videos of artillery because I was like, I might want to get a cannon for the channel one day. And I was watching these guys shooting the Parrott rifle cannon, and I was watching them shooting it, and I was like, wait a second, I recognize that guy. I looked at the channel. Oh, that's first Minnesota sharpshooter.
He's a subscriber to me too. I actually like his videos. His are really good. Pretty cool guy.
But man, just watching that Parrott rifle, when that thing hit, whew, that thing threw dirt and everything else. I was like, wow, pound of powder per shot.
He had a video where they were doing an artillery, barrage with all their cannons, and it blows you away because it's a really dense fog. Like I couldn't imagine during any of the Civil War battles like Gettysburg and whatnot, especially like Pickett's Charge. I really don't think they could see each other for the longest time. Honest to God, you're probably just shooting into a fog 90% of the time.
Oh yeah.
That must have been eerie and weird.
Well, what I want to get eventually is I want to get one of those grasshopper cannons from the Revolutionary War. And they have a 4-inch bore, but they're a little cannon. And they shoot 3/4 inch 75 caliber iron balls for grape shot. And they shoot a lot of them.
Can you guys give me just 1 second? Could you pause my mic real quick? I'm having a little problem right now. I'll be right back. If you don't.
Okay. Garrett, you gonna come back in here?
Yes, sir. We're back. Got a few questions here anyway. Crockpot Broccoli said, I really dig that old New England militia musket. It's the kind of thing my ancestors in the Andover militia would have used defending Bunker Hill.
Mm-hmm. Well, see, that's the thing with that gun is a lot of people were calling it a committee of safety gun, which I kind of went over it in the video, but I missed a few things about it. The reason why that wouldn't really be necessarily a committee of safety gun is because the French shipped over the first Charlevilles in 1777, and the committee of safety, I may be wrong, but I believe it was established 1774. So, yeah, and the committee of safety guns were used a lot on things like Bunker Hill and everything like that. But that gun was assembled in the same manner as a committee of safety gun, so it could kind of be one. But yeah, it's a little weird. I don't know. The best way I could describe it is a battlefield rebuild. That's about all I can get to it. A Charlottesville Battlefield rebuild.
Let's go
They're
to
still super cool though. Super
Yeah.
cool.
Oh yeah. And you know
It
what's
is.
funny is I compared it to that Charlottesville, and the Charlottesville, the military heritage Charlottesville, and whenever I shoot both of those guns, and I'm getting pretty close to getting over my flinch, but when I shoot both of those guns, they
I'm
hit
not.
in the exact same
Me
spot.
neither. I'm
Yeah,
horrible with flintlocks. I can't hit nothing.
but yeah, they hit in almost the exact same spot, just about a foot low. So you got to actually, I'd like to. Well, I'm not gonna be doing a video on it for a long time now, but I would like to do a video someday on how you're supposed to properly sight down the barrel of your musket, because it's a little different than a regular rifle or a shotgun. You got to hold your head up higher on the stock.
And that kills me every time I shoot so low. But anyway, moving on down here, Giant Purple People Eater 97. Sup, Garrett and Ethan, nephew getting a Cricket 22 as his first gun for Christmas. Got
Whee!
to start him out on something. Ethan, how's the Fusil project going? I'll start with the first of that. Cricket's a great gun to start with.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the Fusil project is going to be on hold for a little bit of a while.
He didn't get to take it with him.
Yeah, no, unfortunately. But yeah, so what's going on with the Fusil is that, I don't know, I think I mentioned it before, that I about got bit by a rattlesnake. I had an unloaded gun in my hand, and teak wood is very easy to break. Found out the hard way, because the snake was coiled up, and I did what I was going to do. I took the stock and I struck at him, and I hit him, but it cracked the stock up. So, which, I don't know, I didn't think I hit it that hard, so it may be that wood was a little rough. But I did end up repairing the stock, and we've got it back together. But I am going to eventually, I want to take, and I got some black walnut right now, because it's going to be a year before I can get back and do things, work with it again. But I got several slabs of black walnut right now curing, so I can try to make a stock for it whenever I get back. But
Okay, we
yeah,
got
that's
a few more questions here to go through, and then I'll leave you guys alone. My Caleb Blackwell said his model 1.5 locks on 4 out of 5 chambers. Locks up good aside from that one chamber. He's looked for burrs but can't see any. Ethan, you got any suggestions? Seeing as you've timed one of those before?
I would want to say that you might look at your the ratchet on the back of the cylinder and see what's going on there. You may have a deformed tooth, I guess is what you'd call it. I don't know. What would you call those? Snapper on the ratchet?
I think you're 100% right. Like, he could have a little bit of an indent or wear on one that's not on the others. And it depends. Is it over rotating or under rotating on that one cylinder? If it's over rotating, that's kind of, I think your bolt's popping up too early on all of your cylinders. Too late, excuse me, if it's over rotating. And if it's under rotating, you're probably going to have to do a little bit of playing with that gear ratchet on the back.
If worst comes to worst, Caleb, just mark it, identify it, and use it as your empty.
That's true.
You don't necessarily have to do that with that gun, because you can carry with that gun between the rims. Okay. Trooper Cody said that's a mighty fine wild rag you got there, Wild Snapper.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't show my face. I promised my wife I would, and there's a couple other reasons why. I hope you guys understand it. Hopefully one day the problems of why I would love to show myself, and because it'd be easier, better auto quality, all that stuff on stuff like this. But just please understand that there's a valid reason.
Giant Purple People Eater 97 came back in. He said, also, while Christmas this year is going to be somber, he lost his grandma 2 days ago. I have to say thank you to both of you guys and Snapper for keeping me sane. Well, thank you for watching, because if people like you didn't watch, we wouldn't be doing this.
Yeah, sorry to hear about that, man.
Yes.
It's never easy. It's one of the few downsides of being alive is that happens.
Yeah.
We got one more from Caleb Blackwell here. and then I'll leave you guys back to it. He said, this is directed to Snapper. He said, Wild Snapper, I watched your video on the Remington Iroquois. Did you ever get that fixed? Finding information on the parts is almost impossible.
Yes. No, that is not fixed. A matter of fact, the gun was having another problem. And now the thing was, is I could fix this. Like I said, I could make the part. It's not a big deal. And I could make it to work, but I wanted it to be right. Like, I don't know what that part looked like at all. Now I could guess and make something that worked, but being such a rare gun, I really wanted to make an exact part. So if anybody ever looked at it, the whole idea that I like to live by, especially gunsmithing, is make it look like I was never there. Like the whole idea is to make you never know that I was even near the gun and it's been never touched. And that's kind of what I leaned with that. And I was having an issue with that gun when you go into half cock, that the bolt wasn't dropping far enough. And after taking it apart and really messing with a lot, I actually found out the trigger spring. It's a little bolt trigger spring, and it's really small and really weird shapes. It was actually cracked and broke, so I have to make a new one, which is not going to be fun because it was probably one of the more intricate springs I've ever seen on an older gun that is so small that it's just going to be a pain in the butt. But one day I'll get it going. It'll be a fun gun when it's done.
Reminds me of a few project guns I need to get sent into a professional gunsmith, a couple of originals. One is the one that everybody likes to call the little, what looks like a Chinese knockoff of a Colt 1903, my little Smith & Wesson 35.
That thing's cool. I actually like that. It's just, I like guns that are just different.
Yeah, I need to get that one sent in though, because it's got it has an aluminum magazine and the feed lip got a little split in it. And so I need somebody who can really work with teeny tiny little parts in welding aluminum that I am.
Yeah, and that's not easy. With. Welding aluminum, thin aluminum is not easy. I have the abilities to do it, but I am not good enough that I wouldn't. If it was my personal gun, I would try it, but I wouldn't try on somebody else's because I couldn't guarantee I could fix it. My own stuff, I'll just keep breaking it till I fix it. But somebody else's, I really don't want to,
There's another one.
In a magazine kind of thing.
Oh yeah. And those magazines are impossible to come by because they only made 8,000.
Unobtainium.
Yeah, they made 8,000 of those pistols, and they run on Gunbroker for about anywhere from $800 to $1,300 for that little thing. And I was lucky. I found one in a pawn shop for $300, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna take that off your hands."
That's crazy for being so old, being aluminum too. Like you'd think that would have been, like sheet steel or something. Especially for me, that's crazy. That's pretty cool, actually.
Yeah,
aluminum was a very rare item back at that time. Very expensive, very rare. It was a time aluminum was worth more than gold.
Yeah, it's I gotta remember what year that one was made. So it's called the model 1913, but I think that one was made in the 20s. So yeah, it might have been a little
aluminum
more.
Production was picking up more because of aircraft.
Yeah. Well, I know there was at a certain point when they went from making the blued guns and and they had originally, I think they had steel magazines. And at a certain point, I think it was at serial number 5,700, and I can't. It's I'd have to look at mine because mine is the second one after the changeover. And there's another guy here on YouTube, and I can't remember his name, but he's the only other guy I see that's got a Smith & Wesson model 1913, and he has the serial number before mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was on Gunbroker and I found a Colt single action army that was 2 digits off mine. I thought that was cool. I was like, man, I want that now. That'd be so neat, especially probably impossible to almost find, but it would be really cool to have 2 guns that were consecutive, especially, weren't bought togetger. They were, not ordered as consecutive. That'd be cool.
I commented on that guy's video because he was like, hey, I've got the, I don't know what's going on here. He said, I got the very first pistol off the assembly line that came out with the nickel and the blued two-tone. I commented on there. I was like, well, I got the second one evidently because I'm going right after you.
That's hilarious.
And then there's another gun that I need to get sent in to fix because I'm not going to touch it with a 10-foot pole. It's just that kind of rare, and that's old Annie, the Queen Anne's pistol.
Oh yeah, I didn't know you had a Queen Anne.
Yes, we got.
Am I losing my mind? I don't remember seeing one.
I put a picture of it on the YouTube community thing.
Those are so cool, especially the unscrewable barrel where you can load it from the back. That is so cool.
And what's cool is that this gun actually it's a 60 caliber, and it's weird because the ball is 60 caliber and the barrel is 60 caliber, so you can't roll the ball down the barrel.
Ball through the right.
Yep.
If you get stuck, you just stick it in there.
That way it seals up real good. And it's funny because when you put your powder in, you automatically got a powder measure because it has a smaller chamber for the powder, and you get exactly 55 grains of 2F.
That must have been a very accurate pistol in its time, just because of the consistency and having a tight bore.
So this one, a lot of the reproductions you see, they don't have any sighting system whatsoever. But what I thought was funny is this pistol actually does, and it probably could be a pretty accurate sighting system, because what it's got is, instead of a notch in a post, it has two notches. It has a notch in the rear, and then it has a notch in the bell on the front. Yeah.
So you just line the notches and look through the notches? Yep. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but that pistol has on the cock, on the hammer, it has it's where the hammer screw goes in, and it's been wallowed out a little bit, and it makes the hammer really loose. And so when the flint strikes it, it just kind of flops. So it doesn't create very good spark. So I need to find somebody who is really competent to not rebuild the hammer per se, but to do some work on it.
Sleeve it. Your probably best idea would be to slightly bore it so it's perfectly round, and then sleeve it with something.
Yeah, because there's still
I have those kind of abilities, but I mean, that's the kind of gun. If you really, I would probably go spend the big money on, buddy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something, considering what was paid for it. It's definitely something that I would send to a very highly reputable gunsmith to do.
I 100% agree on that. That's kind of gun you just don't get parts for. And yeah. And you know what would be honestly, like, thinking about it, the best probably way would be to completely re-weld it, rebore it. So it's perfect again, so you can't tell it was sleeve. I mean, I don't know. That's kind of controversial, because it's nice to know if it was worked on. It kind of gives you a better idea of the gun, but at the same time, like, it wouldn't have been correct. So it kind of really how you look at it.
Well, the thing is, even if because that's what I thought was sleeving it, because there's plenty of space in that, or plenty of material around it. But the thing is that hammer screw head will actually cover it, even if it was sleeved. So you wouldn't be able to tell unless you pulled out the hammer screw.
And that would have been made of wrought iron. I mean, that would have been kind of difficult to weld. Thinking about it, that'd be like welding cast iron almost.
It's one of those that, again, like all those old muskets, they would have 100% the guns made out of iron, and then right on the face of the hammer, they would have had, and by hammer, I mean what most people call the frizzen. They would have had a very small piece of some sort of high carbon steel, which I'm sure you already know this, but a big one that people like to use is why can't I think of that right now off the top of my head? It was a little thin spring. I can't remember what it was in, but they would actually forge weld that into the hammer itself. So, and that's what this one
I think that's how my British Sea Surface pistol's done.
Yep.
I think that's exactly the same way, because if you look at it just right, you can kind of see the color change in the metal, where there's two different kinds of metal forged into one at the end. A matter of fact, I actually found out more about this gun. It's got a really interesting past that kind of makes me not want to shoot it that much anymore, because I thought it was just going to be a normal, but it was actually a battlefield pickup from the Battle of New Orleans at the War of 1812. I found that out because it actually sold at auction in the late 80s from a museum in New Orleans, trying to raise money. Yeah.
See, that was what. Go ahead.
That's actually where I found it, and I ended up contacting the that museum asking if they had any more information on that exact serial number on the gun, because it's actually it's only like a 150 or something. It doesn't seem like a real serial number. It kind of seems more like a part put together system, more like a batch number. And looking at the pictures and matching the gun, it's the exactly same gun. Like every little nick, cut, everything is exactly the same.
That's what.
And it sold for more money than I even came close to paying for it. I actually think what happened, whoever bought it ended up passing away. And I found it in an antique store, believe it or not. Yeah. And I paid not much more for it than you would pay for a replica. And then finding out that it's a, I was like, that doesn't look like a replica. It's got original markings. And I didn't pay much for it. They thought it actually had it listed as somebody probably antiqued the, replica. And it wasn't. It was an original. So that was kind of fun.
That's what that militia musket that I was showing on there. I thought I'd ordered that book, and I guess I messed up when I was ordering it off of Amazon, and it didn't get ordered, so I had to go ahead and reorder it. But that Muskets of the American Revolution, that very musket, is featured in that book.
In the book? That is so cool. See, what you do now is you get that in a nice, beautiful print and hang that on the wall next to it.
Yep. That's what I think.
That's pretty cool.
But that was the one that actually told the history of that musket in particular from what they knew of it, because it came from a museum in, I want to say Connecticut. I can't remember which one. I have to look back, but that one was actually bought from a museum.
That's pretty cool. Thinking about that, like you talking about whoever built that gun or repaired it, and that would have been a death sentence for whoever worked on that gun. And it is amazing the caliber of men that built this country. Like, people don't realize that there was the largest empire in the world you're about to fight, and you're nothing but a few people. It is unbelievably insane that we actually won. And it just shows you just because of the caliber of the men.
Oh, here comes Garrett.
It's pretty cool.
I got a few more comments, guys. Here we go.
All right.
We went back to American chimed in here and said, Ethan, that must have been why my dad always said an unloaded gun is just a club. LOL.
Yes.
Talking about your
it is definitely just a
it's
club.
Not the best time to run into a rattlesnake.
No, it is not.
It is not.
Especially when you just got done shooting it and you're like, you just shot it.
I really wish I'd have seen this 5 seconds earlier.
Well, yeah.
Guys, I've been trying to figure out if you see the videos popping up, is because I'm trying to figure out how to add pictures to StreamYard. I can add videos all day long. So as Ethan's talking about the Queen Anne's and stuff, I'm over here frantically trying to
pull a picture.
But I haven't figured out how to put non-video into StreamYard, so we'll just have to do.
If you want to see a picture of it, you'd have to look back a little ways, but we got it in one of our community posts.
Yeah.
So.
I would love it if you guys posted a couple more pictures of that, or just even a small video of it eventually, just going over it. Yeah, that would be cool. That is a neat gun. That is a very, very important gun.
Unfortunately, the flintlock filmer is not near the camera, but I guess I'll have to make do.
I got an idea. Maybe we can have the spirit of old Woody get on there, and I'll do the talking. I'll send you the recordings, and then I'll just have you listen to them and point out the parts of the pistol as I talk.
Oh, there you go. All right, back over here to comments. Caleb Blackwell's still talking about his Smith & Wesson Model 1.5 issues. Said it cocks most of the way back, but I'll read a bunch of these because he's got several comments before you guys answer. Said it cocks most of the way back, hits a wall right before it locks. He said he does keep that one on empty, shoots the rest. If he plays with the hammer, it sometime will lock on the 5th, but he doesn't trust the chamber with a live round. And I asked him to check that the chamber wasn't rubbing the forcing cone, and he says it's not. So any other suggestions, guys?
If it's hitting a wall before it gets in, I know this. I've experienced this problem before. You know what it could be? Your bolt spring. Yep. I actually had a problem with that, where it lost its springiness, and it wouldn't. It would be random, and it wouldn't be consistent.
Well, here's another thing with the 1.5. Depending on which issue he has,
is the bolt spring on the top?
No, the bolt is on the bottom, but it is exposed, and so if your finger is riding too hard up on it, it will actually push the bolt up. If you have a little divot on the back of the, why can I think of what that's called? If you have wear on the back of the bolt where it engages into the mechanism inside the pistol, it will actually ride up if you push your finger up too hard on the pistol. So because your finger literally rides on the back of the bolt itself, and it works like a lever, it works like a spring.
Yeah, it's not like a Colt bolt at all.
It's not like a Colt with a split bolt that
the bolt is actually hinges, and it actually is exposed on the bottom of the pistol.
it might be like that Iroquois I have. It's kind of like that.
Caleb, if we have the same model as you, and if you haven't figured it out by Wednesday, I will have our Caleb do a disassembly video and see if he can figure out what's going on, and we will try to film it. No promises, but if you haven't got that figured out, we will attempt a video of that, maybe either this Wednesday or next Wednesday.
One thing I'd like to know about it before saying anything else is what issue is it? Is it a first, second, third issue?
Is it a tip up or a tip down?
Well, no, because there's different issues of the tip up too. And then they went to the 1.5, which was in 32. It was like the second version of the 1.5, which is in 32 Smith & Wesson, which is a tip down. It's a break top. Yeah, I know.
Okay, Olivia Wood says, howdy, everyone. Nice to see you, Ethan.
Howdy.
Howdy. That's your wife, isn't it, Garrett? Olivia's your wife, right, Garrett?
That's my sister.
My bad.
My wife is Angelica.
Oh, okay.
She doesn't look like any of us. She's brown. She's from Guatemala. So anyway,
Guatemala's a cool place.
Well, that's where her parents are from anyway. Anyway, A American says, Wild Snapper, the creators understand, no explanation needed for the mask, I believe he's talking about. And all right, guys, that's our comments up to this point. I want you guys to, Ethan, head off into talk about that Smith & Wesson double action you guys just got not very long. You have 2 of them. I'm going to get out of here, and you can start right there.
All righty, I guess I'll talk about those for a second. So we were looking for a Smith & Wesson Model 3 double action. And, well, actually, we're still on the hunt for Smith & Wesson Model 3 44 American. First model. But we happened to stumble across one of these, and it was about $300. And it was one of those deals on Gunbroker where we were looking at it, and it looked pretty rough. But we're like, we could probably get this thing to work. They had like 4 or 5 pictures on it. And it's like, even for $300, even if we couldn't get it to work, we can use it for parts. And it's
parts.
Those old guns, that is definitely worth it if you're needing something.
Yeah. So little parts can be worth their weight in gold on some guns.
Yes, especially on those. So
I bought a couple guns before just for parts, just for little parts that were, basically scrap guns as well.
Yep. And so we bid on it, we won it, and then we got it, and we realized that there were certain angles that had pictures taken of them, namely of the bore, where somebody threaded the bore.
You know what? I had a 51 Navy that somebody did that too. They threaded the bore and turned it into a lamp.
Yep, and it gets better. They also went and drilled a hole through the side of the barrel and put a screw through it.
Yep, you know why? Because they probably turned it into a lamp, because the forcing cone on that 51 Navy had a big cutout where the lamp.
That's exactly where this was.
It was like a desktop lamp, so the gun was sticking straight. Matter of fact, it's this gun. It was sticking straight up, and the bulb was screwed into the top, and it had a cut in the forcing cone where the wire would come down.
Yep, and that's pretty much what this was.
When these guns were worth nothing, they were turned into
lamps,
furniture. Which would have been cool. I mean, don't get me wrong, but then it's kind of awkward today. You're looking at a $2,000 gun that was a lamp.
Or like, not to get off the subject, but have you ever heard of what they did with those 1903 Springfield stocks? They'd make table legs out of them.
Oh yeah, I have heard that before. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah,
and now I'm sitting here going no. But anyhow, we bid on that one. We got it, and I got a call from my local gun store because it was one of those ones that we had to send it in there for some reason. But anyhow, we went in there to go pick it up, and he calls me. He's like, "Well, your gun's here." I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "How much did you pay for this?" I'm like, like $300. He's like, "Okay." I go in there and just the cylinders, the notches in the cylinder for the for where the bolt comes up, locks in, they were completely ground down, and it was pretty much worthless. But it did pay for itself in the end, because right after that, little brother, even though he just bid on that pistol because it was cheap and he thought maybe he could fix it, he was mad because he wanted one now. And Caleb was like, "Well, I'm going to go get one no matter what it costs." So we went and we bid on another one.
That's my kind of attitude right there.
Yeah, that's how
That's
Caleb
got me
is.
in trouble a couple times for the wife.
Yeah, well, he's single, so he can get
Caleb,
away
don't
with
get
it.
married, man. If you're hearing this, don't get married. You're going to end up being killed by your wife.
But he went and he took and he went and he bought another one, and it was still a really good deal. I think he paid $700 for one that was in pretty good shape, and it was a very low serial number. I believe I'd have to look, but I think it's serial number 200 and something. And
That's
wait a second, no, it's serial number 92. I remember now. But that one was having issues, and so what we ended up doing was we took apart the junk one, and lo and behold, the parts that we needed were in there, and so we snapped them in there, and it works.
Perfect.
So,
and then you can turn the other one into a lamp.
Pretty much. That's what we probably should do.
I mean, if it's the rest is kind of garbage. As a matter of fact, there's ways of fixing that kind of stuff. Like the 51 Navy had a really good bore. That's what was sad about it. But all we did was counterboard it, because it was only threaded about half an inch or so. Put it in the lathe and counterboard it that half inch, and it didn't hurt it at all.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was like, my brain was scrambling through like how to try to make this thing work.
How would I fix this? Yeah.
I was like, well, I could try to bore it out and sleeve it, and I was like, and then I guess I could try to weld up the notches and then recut them, and then by the time I was thinking about all that, and I was like, nah, this isn't worth it. That
would have been without like, honestly, God, you would need a milling table with an index head to do that properly, or you would probably spend a year with a file.
Yes, we've actually got access to an old school machine shop, and I worked there for a little while, and Caleb, he still works there.
There you go.
But yeah, the reason why I use a file a lot of times for lock work is just because I can sit there and I do it better whenever I can do it by hand. I feel like
I don't mess with most lock work without a file unless I'm completely recutting it, just because it's easier and it's harder, and you little swipes at a time keep you from making big mistakes.
Yep, and I am very particular about what kind of files I use. I have tons of different sizes and shapes and different tooth size. So yeah, but so that we got that one working, and that one's actually a really fun shooter, and it's in 44 Russian. So we just take 44 special cases, we trim them down, and load them up with black powder. I can't remember what the loading is off the top of my head. I think it's 23 grains of 3F, but don't hold me to that. But yeah, it is a fun little gun.
I bet. I've always wanted to get a double action. I don't have any double action revolvers at all, actually.
Yeah.
Zero.
I love double actions. That was actually what got me into Smith & Wesson to begin with, because my first revolver was my first double action revolver, I should say, was the Webley, and those
are really good guns.
Which you really start looking into the nuts and bolts of it, and it is just a modified Smith & Wesson No. 3 double action. Yeah, it's a lot of things are very similar. Well, actually, it's copied off the Enfield, which was copied off the Smith & Wesson No. 3. But I've been reading a lot about the history of Smith & Wesson handguns. And it's funny, I found out that the Smith & Wesson No. 3 Russian was used all the way up into World War II, because they said there was actually firsthand accounts of guys, because the Japanese bought not the No. 3 Russian, the No. 3 double action Frontier model, which is the 4440 No. 3 double action. And there's actually firsthand accounts of guys in Guadalcanal picking up those pistols off of dead Japanese soldiers, because that was Smith & Wesson couldn't sell the No. 3 Frontier model here in the U.S. for some reason. It just wasn't very popular, and so they did what they did best. They went and found a foreign government and sold it to them, which was Japan.
a matter of fact, Great Britain bought a lot of Colt single action armies, and
Yes.
during the time of the Battle of Britain, they're called Battle of Britain guns actually, and they're usually easy to find because they're mostly nickel plated.
Well, another funny thing I was thinking about was that Britain actually used a large number of, I can't remember the model, but they were Smith & Wesson handguns chambered in 45 Colt, like long Colt, not ACP.
That's interesting.
It's very interesting.
Ethan,
I'm curious what that is.
I had to comment, Ethan. You want to know why America didn't buy very many Smith & Wesson Model 3 Frontier double actions? Why in the world would you want a big bore, reliable double action when you have the Colt 1877 Lightning on the market?
Exactly, the best gun ever.
Well, you see what happened was.
I love the 77 double action, even though it's not the greatest gun ever. I want one so bad.
Well, Duelis has kind of changed his tune on it. Duelis has kind of changed his tune on it after he
I saw his video. A matter of fact, I saw you point me out in the comments.
Yeah.
I think it's a gorgeous gun. I just think it's a cool gun.
Going back one more time, Ethan, to this 1.5 that Caleb Blackwell has. He says it is a tip up first issue, 11,000 number range. Thanks for the help. Well, thank you, Caleb, for coming in. Like I said, we'll see what we can do. I can't promise anything, but moving on down, Captain Ron's Adventures in the 18th Century said, Ethan, if the book you're referencing is Bill Ahern's Muskets of the Revolution, he has a copy and can send you the info if you need it.
Cool. Yep. Sounds good. It's I can't remember which page it's on. But it's on the part about the rebuild muskets.
Do they have a picture of it?
Yeah, yes, they do have a picture of it in there.
Look for the musket with the tick marks on the lock, if that's shown in the picture.
The one with, well, you probably wouldn't be able to see that because it's an old black and white picture, but it's the one, you'll be able to tell it. It's the one built with Charleville parts and the 1728 Saint Antoine lock. So that's the best way to tell it.
Iron Wings.
Yeah, that's what's funny about those. Oh, go ahead, Garrett.
Okay, go ahead. I'm going to get on a different thing, so go ahead.
Oh, on the this Colt book I have, all those old black and white photos they took back in like the 20s and 30s. You can't tell what you're looking at in some of those. There was an interesting walker that had a, you know how the walker has the cutout in the grip, where when it goes in, it actually has that dish. They actually made a walker that was like the Dragoon, where it was flat backed back here. And I'm reading this, and it said rare square-backed walker, and I was like, "What the hell are you talking about? It's just a normal walker I'm looking at." And I actually had to look at the picture for 20 minutes to realize what they were talking about because the picture was so bad.
That's why I like that. If you're talking about Haven and Belden, they have a picture.
It's Haven and Belden
of an original, what they call the original rare Dragoon. They have a picture of a Dragoon with a full fluted cylinder and a rounded trigger guard, and that. Years later, of course, everybody who watches the NRA's Curator's Corner, that gun has popped up there, and it's a fake. There's not a full fluted cylinder Dragoon back then that was actually on the market.
Well, that's like with the that's why I'm talking about those old black and white pictures. That's like the Lugers. I started looking into some of the history on those, and they have, there's just so much information out there on those. And that one Caleb has got, it is a really special one because it's all matching, even the serial number matches. It's got the halos around the numbers, everything.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Talk about those black and white photos. The reason why you'll see these Lugers with the whited out markings, the markings are all white.
That's because you couldn't see it in the photos.
Yep. And they would put they'd put like a white wax in there, like a white crayon almost.
All right, guys, let's read on here. I got 2 comments from Iron Wings 3187. I'm going to read them both, and then I'll let you guys have at it. He said, I always thought the majority of screw-ups and bad-looking gunsmith work comes from a lack of patience and using a Dremel. Patience is a virtue for a reason. Can't tell you how many rifles and pistols I've had come through my home shop because someone got impatient and with sandpaper and files and used a Dremel.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the Dremel is a big no-no personally. Like, I think I've only used a Dremel one time ever, and it was for polishing. Yeah. I'm a file guy, and
so depending on what you're using it for. So I've used Dremels before, but I used them for I did some old those semi-auto Sten pistol builds, and I use the cutting wheel on the Dremel to cut out the for like where the charging handle goes and everything, but I don't use them hardly anymore for anything.
Right. Yeah, patience is the big part because there's a lot of time when you're working on, like, for instance, when you're doing that hammer, you're like, oh, if I just do a little bit more, I don't have to put it together so many times. And I ran into that myself where, I have to literally say, no, stupid, this is too much money to go back and re-weld or mess up. It's easier to put it together a million times than have to go weld more onto it or something crazy.
What I like to do when I get to that point is I'll work on it for a few hours at a time, and then once I start getting frustrated and it starts getting late, I'll put it up because that's the point when you're going to do something stupid.
Yeah. I like watching podcasts, like long podcasts when I'm working on guns. It actually makes it interesting and like fun because I found myself filing for hours before just watching podcasts and happier than ever, enjoying myself.
Yep. I usually listen to ghost stories whenever I do it.
Yeah, me too sometimes,
Yeah. But that guy was asking
Chilling tales for dark nights.
Oh yeah. A guy was asking why the United States government didn't adopt the Frontier Model Number 3. Well, you see what happened was there was this company called Colt, and they took the contract.
Yeah, and there's a lot of interesting history on military procurement because there's been times where the better products, and I'm not going to say that Smith & Wesson was better. That's blasphemy. But I'm going to say that there's been times where there's been better products, way better products, that wasn't used because politicians have their finger in the pie usually.
Well, I love it when people talk about military grade. Well, this is a military grade flashlight.
Yeah,
like,
the hell does that mean?
You know what military grade means, right?
That means the cheaply made, mass-produced.
Yeah. Like the Bradley. Anyhow, moving on.
Yeah, right. Matter of fact, I didn't know this till recently, but the F-18 Super Hornet was not the best pick for what they were using for the modern. If they had an upgraded Tomcat that actually had better range, better everything, faster, better range, better everything, and they didn't choose it. They chose the Hornet, and they're paying for it now because they over time most of them using them as fueling trucks basically for other F-18s.
I think that was the F-14A Tomcat, the F-14 Alpha. I don't know. I don't know my modern jets very well, but I think that's what it is.
The Alpha had the older engines. They went to a Bravo, and I think there was a Delta model. But there was supposed to be one that looked very stealthy, kind of like an F-22 mixed with a Tomcat, and that was actually supposed to be the replacement. And it was Dick Cheney owned part into Boeing. And it's kind of interesting because he was the man who had the yes and no decision at the end. And it was kind of interesting how the man who owned part into Boeing chose a Boeing product.
Yeah, imagine that. It's kind of like
that.
Yeah, it's like people talk about military grade, and a few things come to mind. First of all, the Bradley, the wonderful Bradley fighting vehicle. That thing's awesome. Not really. Then I think of the what is it? The Osprey. The Marines Osprey.
Oh, they were just coming in when I was getting out. I had one small ride-on one once, and it was literally like they crashed.
They were crashing all the time while we were there.
Really?
I think they had like 3 crashes.
We had a problem with Blackhawks when I was in. A matter of fact, there was twice where we were hit enough we had to land. And it wasn't even major damage, like it was small caliber, and had it to where we had to land off field. And we had a couple actually crash. Within the confine. Matter of fact, actually, the room I was staying in, I have a picture where one almost hit our room. It was on a really crappy night. We were having a sandstorm, and it ended up coming in and rolling. And we were playing video games, and it was one of those things. We actually thought it was mortars, and I don't know if you experienced this in Syria, but when you get mortared all the time, you stop really going to the bunker unless it seems like it's kind of close.
Luckily, we did not have that issue. Luckily,
we were, we'd always have the C-rams going off and then the mortars landing or rockets coming in, but we were like, it's not far enough to pause the game and go to the bunker. And we had this one. It was like, damn, that was close. And then we ended up finding holy crap, there's a Blackhawk like 40 feet from our room that hit and rolled. Unfortunately, there was a soldier that was killed in it, but thankfully it was completely full and everybody survived except for the crew chief.
Yeah.
But
that was something I was actually
that's
going to
still
try
really
to do.
good odds for a helicopter to crash and roll and doing over 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, so what we had was, when we first got there, the two big loud noises that would always wake you up was whenever our mortars would start firing those 120s.
Oh yeah.
Those things are loud. And then the Air Force got a kick out of waking us up at 3 o'clock in the morning by buzzing over our cop with F-22s at super high
fun.
speed. So you'd be laying in your bunk, and all of a sudden the ground would start shaking. You hear them things going overhead, and everybody's jumping and running.
You've heard I'm sure you've seen C-rams go off, the Gatling gun on the ground that shoots down mortars. We had one that was fairly close to our room, and it is unbelievably loud, and it happens random. You know, you don't know when it's going to happen.
I know what you're talking about.
It sounds like the world is exploding around you when it goes off. And when your room is near one and you're, in the middle of the night sleeping and then it goes off, I'm telling you, I still have sleeping problems because of that. There's nothing scarier than getting woke up to the sound of the world exploding around you because the stupid thing's firing.
Where we were kind of out in the middle of nowhere on like a little cop, a little SF cop. And so what we had was our local rebel allies with their 14 millimeter Dishka would randomly start firing rounds off in the middle of the night, and that thing was loud.
Toyota driven Dishkas?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had that one mounted. They had the smaller Dishkas on the Toyotas, but they had the big one on the
big one.
Yep.
All right, guys.
Is your guys' video frozen?
No. I don't
Your
know.
video?
I think his is.
No,
I'm
frozen. No, you're moving. Move your hand.
There you are. There you are.
You're fine.
Am I moving? You guys aren't moving, but that's fine.
I'm going to have to call it.
Everybody else can see it.
Randy Wilson came in here, guys. I get you got to go, Ethan.
Yeah, here pretty quick.
Well, let's go to an hour. That's 4 minutes from now.
Okay.
Okay. Randy Wilson came in here. He said, my military service taught me everything I need to know about military grade. Caleb Blackwell here has one, I think, for me. He said, I know it's not a revolver, but in the history of the Colt, have you thought about doing an episode on the Colt contract rifle, which turned into the model 1863 Springfield? I've thought about it, but the books I have are mostly on the handguns, and I haven't got a lot of information on the musket. I would like to. I had a chance to get my hands on one once. I didn't. I should have. But if I ever get the books, because right now all my money is going in, and all of Caleb's money is going into books on the revolvers. I'll get into that if I ever happen to have a book that has enough information to make a video. He said, or special mention of the near impossible to obtain guns like the 1855.
Yeah, those are pretty almost impossible to obtain. The rifle version, the 1855 rifle, is that what he's talking about?
Saying, but if you go back and watch the history, there's an 1855.
Yep.
An original.
Great, I can't see it.
But yeah, I make brief mention of the 55 root rifle.
I remember you mentioning it. I don't remember seeing it though.
I did not dive deep into it. I plan to someday.
You have an 1855 rifle, and I can't see it. Well,
no. That was not the rifle. That was just my root pistol.
Your root. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I've seen the root. Yeah, it's basically the same thing. It's just an overgrown root with a long barrel.
If you want to go back into if you go watch the 1855 video, I believe I have some pictures, and I briefly go over it, but not very detailed. Okay, guys, Ethan's got just a few more minutes here. I wanted to get you guys both on the subject because I believe, Snapper, did you not just pick up a Smith & Wesson Model 1?
No, that is not. It was a Merlin, actually.
It's basically the same action.
It's basically the same action, pretty much. That gun is. I hope to get it going one day, but it is far gone.
I think we talked about this while I was in Arizona. Isn't that the one that was Smith & Wesson had actually contracted, or they gave them the patent? They paid them.
I believe
patent.
So. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was like the 1870 something. It was like the XX standard Merlin. Neat little gun. I only paid $15 for it, so I couldn't complain.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah, I was thinking if it doesn't never fire again, it's still a pretty object to hang on the wall or something.
Or if you need to, you can go ahead and make a reference to it. You got it right there. You don't necessarily have to shoot it in one of your videos, you know.
Oh, that is true. That is actually true. 100%.
That's probably, there's quite a few firearms that I have that I do that with, like my Brown Bess, my original Brown Bess that I never shoot. And
that's another gun that I'd love to get my hands on one day. I would love to a Charleville so bad, and a Brown Bess. I need to get one military heritage just to have one, because just for fun. But I would love to have an original. Especially, I was looking at the IMA. You know, they had that Indian. No, it wasn't India. It was Nepal contract, and during the early 2000s, when all those guns that were found in the palace. And they bought in the palace. You could still buy the Brown Bess kit where it's all the metal in a new stock for like $700.
You still can. They're still selling those.
I was really wanting to get one just because it's a real Brown Bess. It's not a replica, and it's $700. And I could put it together and make it fire.
That's you're essentially paying the same price for a military heritage gun, but it's an original.
Exactly. And I don't care if it's rough. It's the real thing. It was there. It lived it. And these were in real combat too. I mean, these were all, I forgot the battle they were supposedly in, but they were, I might have it wrong, but I know that the Nepalese basically ended up getting it from the East India Dutch Company, something like that. And all the flints, as a matter of fact, that's the flints that I use in this. I actually bought from IMA that came from that, because they had flints for sale for cheap, and I got like 5 pounds of flints for like $30.
So here was what was funny about those. I bought some. They weren't from Nepal, but they were supposed to be original. They were 18th century flints, and I bought a handful of them, and they were supposed to be for the Brown Bess. And I went to put them in the Brown Bess, and I don't think they're for a Brown Bess. They are extremely large.
The ones I have are extremely large too. I mean, they were like an inch and a half wide. Yeah, they were massive. I was actually, a Brown Bess lock must be huge compared to this little pistol.
I think that they're actually, what I had may have been like wall gun flints, because they are extremely large. Matter of fact, that's what we put in the Ottoman/Egyptian dog lock, because it's got such a humongous lock on it. The lock alone weighs 2 pounds on that gun.
Is that new gun you guys got at the auction the other day?
Yeah, that Turkish Ottoman
that thing is cool.
Egyptian thing.
I
shot it the other day.
No offense, I really wish I'd have seen that. I did not see that on the website when I was looking. But I'm a Colt sucker.
I saw that, and I was like, I saw a really bad picture of it, and I just saw a glance of it, and I was like, oh, it looks like a Snap-on. Spit on it. And then Garrett,
I can't believe it went for so cheap. Like,
oh yeah,
you guys' auctions are so different over there than they are here, because
you got to catch them right.
This thing was so cheap compared to what they sell here. I mean, this thing was parts value what I bought this for. And over here, like I said, there's several stores with these, and they had the exact same barrel length, the exact same gun, and they were in really crappy condition, going for $1,400 here. And that's like the going price is around $1,400 to $1,600. And then, getting one of these things for $500, I was just blown away. It's still shocked. And then that little Colt replica 51 thing that you have, Garrett, that was still amazing that thing got so cheap. I mean, that's cool. That's really cool. I'd love to compare it compared to the actual original Colt, because it's neat.
We had to go to Lodgewood for some screws and some parts on that. All the screws are identical. Springs are identical.
I think it is 100% identical. It's probably because, when the factory burned down, they just, like you said in your video, they just went to make them there.
Well, they did kind of, but also they made a few after Colts, and there was a little bit of tension there because they kept making them when they probably. I mean, weren't
allowed to.
Well, I mean, the patent was already up, technically.
Oh yeah.
Speaking. But they made a few more after that. But the thing is, on that gun, the only thing that's not the same as the Colts, and I've measured out with my brother-in-law's Colts. I took them out and looked at them the other day. The wedge hole is almost, I would say, 1/8 of an inch wider, the wedge hole slot, than the Colt. But that's literally the only thing, and I don't
The
know
only
why.
difference.
Yeah,
That's cool. I wonder, like, how many parts are interchangeable. Like, if you could just swap the, if the parts are fully interchangeable.
Everything on there is pretty well interchangeable. We've been down
That's
inside
cool.
of it. We've ordered most of the parts and stuff from Lodgewood for their original 51 Navy screws. Like I said, screws, springs, trigger, all that stuff identical. Just the
That's
arbor,
awesome.
the slot in the arbor is a little bit longer. I was
And
going to
that's
go over.
not really a big deal.
Yeah, we're gonna have to build up. We got an original. We got a Lodgewood wedge for an original, but we're gonna have to build up the side just a little bit to make it fit. Brass 762 says some of those Brown Bess and Nepalese, however you say that, made, and some of them are British and some are mixed. Yeah, I know that. I do know that they've sit in the palace, but they weren't contained very well.
Yeah, some of them are really bad.
They sit on butt. They sit on the butt for like the last 200 years, and they literally have been ate down to where you have to restock most of them, from what I've heard.
Right.
So
there's a video. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's actually a documentary on that, and it's really good. It's on YouTube here. I found it, and it was like an hour long or something. Mm-hmm. And it was neat because you get to see all these things they found, like how they found the flints. It was actually in the area where they said, "Oh, if you need to go use the bathroom, go over here." And one of the guys was kicking a brick, and then he saw, a couple lead balls, and then realized there was like 3 feet of lead balls below the bricks. And then when they got down there, it was like flints, and there was like 4 feet of flints in that room, and they just kept going down.
Do you have to leave, Ethan?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go pretty quick. But before I do go, I was gonna talk about those Brown Bess. I think they're Indian pattern Brown Besses, which if you ever look at the history of those are kind of funny because those are one of the few guns in history that were made for a company, a non-government entity, and then there were so many of them made that the government ended up using them a lot. So
it was the East India Trading Company, wasn't it? What they were made for?
Yeah, East India Trading Company. Vlogs is down here. So do you think you mean the British East India Company? I think that's what
I think that's actually what it was. Yeah, I think it was the British East India Company. I always hear it as just the East India Trading Company. I really don't know. I'm guessing it's British because you always could see it with, every time you ever hear about it, you always imagine like the British Navy and whatnot.
Yeah. But anyhow,
Pirates
I guess yeah.
Well, but Ethan, we'll talk to you later. Hopefully on the next one. He's kind of getting.
It was nice good seeing you, Ethan.
Settle down where he can join us more often. Thanks, Ethan.
Yep. All right.
Take care, bro.
Later.
Well, I cut him off. Oh well. Anyway, Snapper and I'll probably go for another 30 minutes if you're good, Snapper.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to.
Go to an hour and a half. We're at an hour and 7 minutes right now. Now that the Smith & Wesson has gone,
now that the blasphemy is gone,
we can talk about Colts.
Indeed, we can. Let's see.
I actually had a comment up here. Where was it? Iron Wings 3-187. I'll just call you Iron Wings. He says, waiting for you guys to come up with a Colt cloverleaf to shoot. Well, stay tuned. We're talking about house pistols. Colt house pistols is going to get its own episode if I ever get the 1860 Army turned out. every time I get like absolutely ready to turn it out, I find a new piece of information, and I'm like, oh, I'm ready to film, and then something else comes up, and then I'm like,
did you ever find yourself 1860?
No, that's the other thing. I'm waiting. We're really waiting. I have a lot of the script written up already, but we are waiting to. As you know, we have been on the hunt for an original 1860 in our price range for a while.
Do you remember how much those two went at that auction?
Around 500. One of them was 450, one was 500, but
that wasn't worth it then. I was like, if they went for like 300 a piece or something. Yeah, I remember it being rough. I was like, if they were like 300 a piece, buy both and
I don't know. With the exteriors being pitted the way they were, it might not.
There's a technique that I've seen done before. Now, I've never done it to any of my guns, but with a gun in that bad a condition, I would consider doing it. Is literally you would go in and weld in the pits and file and weld and file. And I have a surface grinder where you could regrind it and get it all back to the same size again. But then you're also talking about a fully, basically restored original gun.
Yeah.
And I'm not into the fully restored original guns. To me,
there's enough of them around here that are in decent condition. Like
Right.
we're a big reenacting community around here. That's why I was telling you before, our auction's usually pretty good because we've just hit
it was
the
amazing.
era where all the old reenactors are getting out. And these are guys that started in the, some of them in the 40s and 50s, some of them they're really old, and they didn't have replicas. So they had the originals. And they're getting out of it. They're getting old, passing away, and their kids don't necessarily want them. So right now in our area, it's not hard to find good Colt deals. I mean, it's not going to last forever. I actually I have my eye on an 1860 that's in an auction that's coming up here in about 2 months. If everything works out, then I'll have it. If that's the one I go for, I may wind up going ahead and making the video because we already have 3 1860 replicas. We have the civilian, we have a Pieta, we have a Uberti, and a Pieta civilian model. But we might wind up doing that without it. But
and there's nothing wrong with these Italian replicas. They're great guns. As a matter of fact, I recommend it for people who just like to shoot. If they're not into the blowing a lot of money on an old piece of metal, they're so much worth it.
Yeah,
they're way less stressful, and they're great guns. I've never had any issues with any Italian replicas. I love them to death.
The only trouble is once you get into an original, it is so hard to go back to.
Hard to go back. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. I mean, they're good, they're great, but there's something.
It's nothing like that. There's something about it, and you know what it is.
The hammer spring's so much stouter.
That too. Holy cow, are they? A matter of fact, every single original gun I have, I've modified because I always take the springs out because it's always something that's always broke on me. So when I was first buying these guns, so I always take the original springs out and put them in a box in the safe, and I'll just buy like Lodwood manufacturing springs, or a lot of replica springs work just fine. You have to trim them a little bit sometimes, or modify the hole to make it just a little bit longer. But it dramatically lessens the hammer blow. Like my single action Army, all the springs in this thing are actually, I think they're your Uberti springs and Wolf springs, and they work fine. And it's nothing like the original hammer spring. When you actually dry fired one of these things with the original springs, you actually felt like you're hurting the gun because they're so strong.
I noticed in your Alec Baldwin video you made that when you took it apart, I was like, that original has wire springs.
Yep. I like the wire springs. Like I said, the original springs, I like to keep the guns as original as possible. And if I shoot them, the original parts I don't want to wear out or break on me. And so if I shoot my guns, I do change some of the internals for shooting versus keeping as a collector. I do it kind of two ways. So the gun lasts as long as possible in original condition versus if I want to shoot it. Mm-hmm. So I get the best of both worlds out of that. Yeah. Personally, I think that's the way to go because it is a tragedy when even though it's a spring, it feels like a tragedy. And the saddest part is every single original spring I've ever broke, I still have them. I couldn't even throw them away. And I was just like, it's 140 years old.
Well, I'll tell you what, since we've gotten into the originals the last few years, Lodgewood manufacturing has been irreplaceable for us. I mean, it's not bad, and they make everything. If it's in stock, they make pretty well everything. You could basically build a gun that would be a replica
from scratch,
exactly made like
with original Colt parts, or original sized replica Colt parts.
Yeah, I mean, Lodgewood manufacturing guys, if you guys are out there thinking about replacing parts or something on an original Colt, go over there. They do an excellent job.
They're great. They're great. A matter of fact, I believe what happened is back in the day, there was a repair facility or something, and the people who owned Lodgewood bought that all out, ended up with all the parts, and they manufactured parts for years, way back in the day, and they just have a crap ton of stock still. Yeah, and I have no issues with it. They're great parts, good people, fast shipping, and they're not that expensive.
Fast. Very fast. Yeah, and they're literally some of the parts are literally cheaper than replica parts.
Yeah, those Colt nipples I bought for this were actually cheaper than the Pieta ones
or something like that. It's not bad at all. because we've just bought a bunch of Colt nipples from him. Caleb Blackwell's back in here. He said, I got a Martini Henry that came from Nepal, but it had some deep pitting on the barrel. So as soon as I fit a replacement stock, I'm going to have to shoot it with a long string. Well, that's actually a good way to do it to start.
That's a really, really good way to test a gun for the first time if you have any fears of the condition of the firearm. Yeah. And that's a really cool gun too. That's a gun that I've always had on my bucket list, but never bought because there's always something else that pops up right when I'm about to buy one. Something comes out of the wild that's like, oh, I cannot pass that up.
Yeah,
that's the only reason I don't have an 1877 now. It's the unicorn gun. Every time I'm about to buy one, it freaking something else comes up.
It's should be 577 Snyder, right? Or am I wrong?
I thought it was like 455 something. I might be wrong too.
The Snyder might be in that conversion gun. Okay, I'm probably wrong about that.
It's like this it's a black powder. I think it's 45 caliber, but it's really long and it's a big old. I heard they're pretty difficult to reload.
Yeah, you can actually make them. I think I'm going to speak out of turn, but
I think it was a shotgun brass.
Yeah, brass 410 shells.
British Muzzleloaders has a video on converting the brass shells and reloading them and everything.
I always thought they were awesome. Anybody who's ever seen the 1970s movie Zulu, man, that I call it the carousel of death. Where they raise up fire and walk forward, raise up fire and walk forward. Man, there is nothing. They don't see that, and you're like, I want a Martini Henry.
Trust me, I know. It's kind of funny because I always tell my wife this is, we've been fairly fortunate in our financial lives in the past, but you see people like the Kardashians, and you're like, these people have no talent. And if I just had a quarter of that money, the guns that I would own,
you just had the NFL salary. I would do. If I had that NFL salary, if I had Patrick Mahomes $500 million, I would own the Armsmere collection from Hartford, Connecticut. I would I would have a personal museum. I mean, I would 100% have a personal. I'm coming close to that now, but I would literally buy like the Cody Firearm Museum, and it would be great. That would be cool. I would have one of every single gun that I've ever made. Never make your money back.
No. Well, you know what? I've actually been pretty lucky on all the guns so far. I've never really lost money, like big money. I've lost a little bit, but nothing major. I've gained a lot more money than I've lost in firearm collecting, but that's if I sold them.
Yeah.
That's if I sold them. But I have a good friend of mine who collects, a lot of originals and whatnot, and he put basically his 401k into his collection years ago, and he tripled his money and value by buying, selling, collecting and selling. And he made a lot more money than he would have just keeping his 401k and, going the long route.
Caleb Blackwell and Brass 762 coming in here saying it's a 577 Snyder neck down to a 45. So it's a 577 450. I knew it had to do with 577.
So we were both right.
If Ethan was still in here, he was big into the British military guns. He would have known that right off. But like I said, I like the way they look. I would love to have one.
Oh yeah, me too.
Chambered in 4570.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Thinking about it, that would actually be a perfect gun.
Gina Wood says, "Oh, I love seeing Ethan." Well, Mom, I'm sure that Ethan loves seeing you too. And Brass 762 Royal Tiger said there are flintlocks in Ethiopia, but they don't plan to bring them over. I'm going to go out on a limb here, Brass, and I don't know if I'm hurting anybody's feelings, but I would say stay away from Royal Tiger. If Ethan was here, he would be all over it too, because we have several Royal Tiger purchases over there, and it was not a pleasant. It was not a pleasant deal to go through. When they offer you a hand select choice or whatever, and it comes out worse than the worst thing they could have possibly had on the pile. It takes you 6 months to get it, and you have to fight for it after you pay for it. But
and a lot of those guns, especially in Africa, if anybody's ever been there, those guns are used to the point of death and then used 100 more years.
And that may just have been our one single experience. Well, it's not one single experience. We've actually had a couple. We kept giving them tries because we have quite a few guns over there that are from Royal Tiger Import, and it's literally just it's been a headache. I hate to say, but it really has. If you guys want to give them a try, it may be different people now. I don't know. That's just our experience. Caleb Blackwell says, I don't know why, but working on wood is more nerve-wracking than fitting metal to me. I guess I'm just weird. No, you're not, because it's so much.
No, you're not. I agree. I actually agree with you 100%.
And it's harder to find original wood.
The only thing I actually don't mind working on wood with is Colt grips, building Colt grips from scratch. I actually like doing that. It's kind of fun. Yeah.
But you don't want to mess up original grips either.
No.
And just a slight bit of sanding, and you got them. I never sand originals. I'll try to my best to use a paint stripper and then card it off to the best of my ability, and then use a super light. If you have to do it at all, you shouldn't even probably do it at all. But
no, you shouldn't do it at all because they usually shrink anyways. So they're usually too small.
And what I'm talking about is not necessarily, especially not on like Colts, but when you get into, say you have a sporterized or something that somebody's already worked on, military surplus gun or something. The trouble is, if you touch that with too much sandpaper, you get below and you make the steel proud very easily.
Yep. You know what I found that really helps on wood though is scrapers. Like you take a metal spring and you kind of raise a burr on it. And instead of like sanding, you just kind of scrape. Mm-hmm. And it to me, that is the best way to work on wood, hands down.
Because I've restored quite a few. Well, and they're not restored. I've gone and kind of defarbed a lot of these military heritage guns we get. And that teak wood, of course, it looks terrible when it comes. They have some kind of like paint on there. And so what I've figured out I can do with that, the best, and this is going to sound weird, but I take in paint stripper. Of course, everything's off. And I strip that. It's just a shellac. This is not a gun I'm hurting because, this is a $500 replica.
Yeah, these are replicas.
You strip that slack off with paint stripper, and then I take an old cassette tape cover. It has the lip on it. I don't know if any of you remember what I'm talking about. And I just dig my finger in that lip, and I use the blunt side of that cassette tape cover to card with. I don't know why, but it works really well because it's a little rounded.
The wood out.
Yeah, it's not like it's sharp enough to dig because they're rounded. That's just something I had one day, and I've been using it ever since because it works really well. So you card with metal?
Yeah. When carding, I card with metal. I use spring steel usually, or you could use I've had to use them before. I don't recommend it as much because it's a little bit touchier, but you could use a razor blade. But that's a little bit touchier. You want to go real slow and real soft.
Yeah, it's very easy to change that wood.
And honest to God, I don't recommend, I truly do not recommend modifying any original guns, period. And if, say, for instance, the wood is all messed up on an original and you need to replace it and then you get a new one, that's a different story. Like a new piece of wood and fit it, that's a completely different story. But I've never had any real issues to the point where I would say I've needed to strip and actually do work on grips that weren't broken. They usually just shrink so you don't have to do anything to them at all. They're usually too small. But what's interesting that I was going to make a video on this soon, but in a long story short, when you look at original Colt grips, the best replica company that I can say that has the correct color and look, which I hate, is Uberti. Uberti's red, that real bright red, and really deep lacquer look. That is actually how the Colt looks. All the original Colts that I have that have still lacquer on the wood, that's what they look like. They look almost identical to the Ubertis.
That's going to shock a lot of people. Because a lot of people hate that spaghetti look and try to get rid of it.
Because a lot of people are like, oh, you need to get rid of this and strip that finish off and then go to a nice sanded oil finish. And that's what I like myself, and I sanded oiled finish, but it's not correct. Like I said, my video is still frozen, but
you're moving.
Let's see if I can get okay. On my side, it's frozen, but like if you look at this 49 pocket, I don't know if I can get it right, but like right in here where the where's the camera side on this thing? Right there. Right in here where the lacquer still really thick. It is identical to Uberti. If you put them next to each other, they look 100% identical. Uberti actually has it right.
Some Ubertis are so red they're blood red, and I don't know if that's quite. But yeah, I get what
That's
you're
not
saying.
quite, but it is the closest I've seen so far. Usually 99% of the Ubertis I see are very close to what the original Colts look like when they were brand new.
Okay, just a second. Let me slide over here to my airsoft collection.
But Remington, though, is different. You still there, Garrett? I don't know if anybody can hear me. I can't see. It's still frozen on my screen. Garrett, you still there, buddy? Looks like your mic is turned off, Garrett.
Hey,
there you are. There you are. I thought I was frozen. I finally came alive, like right at the right time to tell you.
Was my mic off the whole time?
Yeah. I was like, man, it's quiet. Did I lose connection with everybody? But
yeah, that's because I moved away, I think.
Oh, it's all good, man. But like I was saying in my mumblings, but the Remingtons, though, that actually do have more of that oiled, sanded look to them.
I was just showing this is what you were talking about.
Yeah, that is a little too red.
Too red.
That's too red.
That's what a lot of people think when they think Uberti. And actually, it doesn't look that red to me. I think it's the lighting.
It's probably the camera, because if you just lighten that up a little bit, that's actually not that far off. Let's see how your light looks compared to this original 51. Well, they're very different.
Yeah, see, so that's what I was saying. Some of the spaghetti red is just way too red.
When I had these next to, let's see how that looks. Well, yeah, I think it's the light as well. But yeah, that looks extremely red. The couple of Ubertis that I've had at my house the last couple of days, I don't have them here now, but they were actually almost identical.
This is what you're looking at. This is almost. I mean,
that is
in it.
Yeah.
But this Colt root revolver it still has its original box and everything here with it, and it has very rarely been held, except for if somebody's dropped it right here and cracked it. But that's about as close to original grips as I think you're ever going to see, as far as quality. And it is fairly red.
And I don't know if that does, but I know that this pocket and this 51 Navy had a really thick layer of lacquer on it. Mm-hmm. That clear coat. It wasn't thin, and it actually had that real deep lacquer.
I'm going to jump back over here to the comments.
Okay.
He said, Caleb Blackwell, man, you've been lighting up the comment section. Thanks for all your conversation over here.
Yeah, man.
He said, I have an original 1860 made in 1863. The nipples are frozen in it, so I will need to fix that, but I don't have a drill press. So hopefully penetrating oil will work. Well, if you're subscribed to the Snapper, you've seen some of his fights.
I just made a video on that. This is the God's honest truth, brother. Out of all the guns I've ever worked on with stuck nipples, I've never had it where I could get all of them out without physically cutting them with a mill.
Yeah.
I usually can get one or two out if I'm lucky. I've seen people do it, but they've had to use blow torches and stuff that I'm not willing to do. I'd rather just cut the head off and then, measure everything out and do it perfect. But if you end up in that situation, that might be the route you have to go.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Dylan. Dylan Ebling's in. He says, hi, Garrett. Dylan is my neighbor. And
Cool.
I'm sorry I missed you, Dylan. That's been a few minutes ago. I hope you're still watching. I haven't been over there to the chat. But, yeah, hi, Dylan. I see you commented a few times. I'm glad. Dylan is a young man who is interested in firearms, and he watches almost all of our stuff.
Nice.
We actually have a lot of teenagers and kids watch a lot of our stuff.
That's good, man.
They really enjoy these old firearms. I had a couple more. Have any of you been to Jesse James Farm in Kearney, Missouri? Yes, I have. I don't know. Have you, Snapper?
No, but I have a really interesting story about Jesse James. If you guys care to hear it. This girl I used to date back in the day when I was in high school, her family live in Missouri, northern Missouri, and they have a large ranch up there. And it's been in their family for a very long time, like very early 1800s, I believe, is when they built the house that's there. And when I was up there speaking to their grandparents and whatnot, and I'm not going to tell the family way because it was kind of a big secret that they showed me this. And the only reason I think they showed me is because me and this girl were together for a long time, and it actually looked like we were going to end up together, but it didn't happen. But when they realized I liked guns, they brought out a gun and showed it to me. And then they also brought out records from the local jail. And their great-grandfather, one of the grandfathers, whatnot, was actually a cellmate with Jesse James for a little bit because he got caught stealing a horse. And Jesse James was arrested for something. But it showed it on the paperwork. And apparently they were good friends. And the guy traded a horse to Jesse James for the gun. And the family still has it. And what was interesting, they had a book on Jesse James with a picture. And there was a picture of Jesse James and this gun that was in this picture with him and in his holster. You could kind of see the detail on the grip. And what was interesting was if you see how the grip is here, imagine the outside's being cut off with just a thin slip in the middle. And apparently his hand was small, and he was known for doing that. And
that's a very common story for him. It's one of the reasons I think he went to the Smith & Wesson, just because the grip frame is not as flared at the bottom.
And this gun was done like that. And not only that, there was notches in the wood that when you compared the gun I was holding to the picture, I mean, it was exactly identical. Where it's a photocopy of the exact same gun. And it's been the town knows the story, and they had the paperwork to identify that this would have happened, but at the same time, you had to take the word that they traded the gun for the horse. But the picture literally shows this gun. And I mean, when you look at a gun, you can see little niches and just whatnot on a gun, and you're comparing. You can identify an original gun in a picture. It's not that hard looking at little notches or any flare, like if somebody's dropped it, a crack, whatnot. It's very hard to replicate a crack in a picture if you're trying to fake it. And when something looks exactly the same, it was very, very interesting. To hold. And yeah, they still own it to this day. It was pretty cool to be able to hold that.
Yeah, the family farm, the Jesse James farm there in Missouri, is where the headstone is. And I do enjoy that place. But one of my favorite places is his house in St. Joseph, where he was shot, where you can go see the hole in the wall.
The wall.
The only trouble is the bullet was still in his head. So I've come after several trips there and looking at that thing over and over and I'm actually going to go back here in a couple of weeks. I got to go up in that country anyway. And so I'm going to go do some filming. I'm convinced that what happened is his head was close to the wall, and his head smacked that plaster so hard when that bullet hit him that it chipped it. And then over the years, people have dug and took little pieces out of it until it's literally a hole the size of your fist. And the guy that's in there will tell you this is the power of the 44 Smith & Wesson. It blew a hole that big in the wall.
That big.
Even though the bullet was still in his head.
It's still,
the autopsy.
But you know, that's what's crazy. Like, if you go to Tombstone and whatnot, and you go in like the birdcage, you can see it is weird about humans. They do this where there'll be a bullet hole, and there's always somebody, even to this day, where they catch trying to dig into the hole
Mm-hmm.
to find the bullet and whatnot, and mess with stuff.
Yeah. That is very interesting place if you guys haven't got to visit both the farm and the family home of the Mr. Howard's family home there, or as Jesse James was going by.
I've personally never got to go there. It'd be cool. That would be cool to go.
Like I said, I hope to post a video of it in the next month or so of it traveling over there again. I've been there quite a few times. It's very, very interesting. I love that place.
I've always been wanting to go to Lincoln to see the whole area of Billy the Kid. I always thought he was an interesting character in history. I always, to this day, I still think that he was not a bad guy. I think he was a good kid. He just in a messed up situation.
You see, I'm not so convinced on him as I'm a Jesse James fan, but I would listen to your arguments on the deal though. That's a whole nother video. That's a whole nother video. We ought to have a video discussing who was more lied about and who was actually the better person, Jesse James or Billy the Kid. Do you think Brushy Bill Roberts is Billy the Kid?
No, 100%.
Okay. Yeah, you listen to Wild West Extravaganza too, don't you?
Yeah, not only him, but there's a lot of. A matter of fact, he's actually a subscriber of mine. I was so happy to see that. I freaking love that channel, by the way. If you guys never watched it before, Wild West Extravaganza.
I'm jealous. He's not a subscriber of mine.
Oh, he is. Oh, man, I'm telling you. When that happened, dude, I was like on the moon. One of those people I've been watching for years. As a matter of fact, his podcasts have gotten me through many a trip and many a working on guns.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm 100% positive that Brushy Bill Roberts was not Billy the Kid. As a matter of fact, I grew up in Texas, and I don't think it was Brushy Bill Roberts. One of the other people who pretended to be Billy the Kid is buried in Granbury, Texas, and I actually grew up. I spent about 5 years of my life there. And I was there in 1999 when they dug up the grave to do DNA testing. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is they said, it wasn't him, but there was 2 graves there, and they only took the top one. They didn't take the bottom one. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I'm still convinced that I'm pretty sure history happened the way it did in the book. Yeah.
I would say it because of this. Do you think if Pat Garrett was going to make up that story, he would make up a story where he said, I went in and shot him in the dark?
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I don't think
he wasn't that kind of person. He would have painted himself as being a heroic.
Exactly. Yeah. All right, moving on. We go back. Brass 762. He says, I need a few parts for the tool I made, Smith & Wesson number 3. My grandpa got from the Japanese in World War II. Awesome.
Wow.
Mostly the screw that goes through the hammer. Now, I'm not sure whether or not when they tooled up in Russia for that, if it was
metric or SE.
I don't know if it would be metric, because I know that they used that Smith & Wesson provided a lot of some of the machinery anyway, but I don't know what that I don't know what the screw change would have been back then.
What I could recommend for you is any competent machine shop. If you walked in or gunsmith, they could easily make that for you or get it for you.
Have easily. Pictures of what the head should look like at least, but
yeah. Bring in pictures and whatnot, and bring in the gun, and they'll be able to match the threads, match the length, match everything, and 100%. Screws are really easy to make from scratch. They're not hard.
I'm almost a go-to. I mean, like Ethan said, we have access to an old school machine shop, but I'm about to go find a machinist to build me that long barrel for that 51 Navy. I've just almost decided I ought to just have it built. That might be difficult, though.
No, I don't think so. With a mill, I mean, it's all flat-sided.
Mm-hmm. Except for the mounting, except for the base where the mounting pins are. And
a matter of fact, you know what I would do? You know what I would do if I was personally going to do it myself? I would take a 51 Navy barrel.
Okay, if any of you guys don't understand, I kind of jumped into this. This is a discussion that Snapper and I've been having for a long time. Not for a long time, actually, just a couple of weeks. But
just a couple of weeks now. But I think it's a cool idea. I'd love to do it.
We're in the process on our channel of attempting to build. I'm not saying it's ever going to happen, because it's just something we've been kicking around, building a either 49 pocket model or a 51 Navy into a 20-inch barreled rifle, adding a stock onto it and making a revolving rifle that never necessarily existed in history.
Like those Remington.
No, those did exist, and the root revolvers did exist, but I don't believe there was ever an open top designed rifle, and there might be reasons for that, but I would like to try and find out.
I think it would be perfectly fine, especially if you're doing 36 and you're still using the same kind of loading and everything with a normal cylinder. But what I would do is I would take the barrel either about here or even the regular length. I would completely bore it out so it's a bigger hole now, and then you would use another one and you would cut it off, or just a hexagonal piece this exact same size. Butt them together, and you would fillet cut them so there's a nice fillet. Weld it all, and then once you go across it with a milling cutter, it would hide all the welding, and it would be easy. And then once you would then sleeve it with a liner. I think it'd be extremely easy to do. It would be a one-day project.
We just haven't decided. We would like to do a squirrel rifle out of a 49 pocket model, but at the same time, that receiver is that water table and everything on that is so small. I don't know if it would hold up to the weight of like a 20-inch barrel very well. Without
You're right. I don't know either. I think that the 51 Navy would be a great candidate.
Yeah, and just slap a stock on it.
And what would be kind of cool is you could leave. If you left it this length, you could have the normal loading rod to it, the whole 9 yards, and just add the barrel part to it.
Yeah,
I think it'd be a fun project, personally.
Going back over here, Brass 762, the black powder guns from Ethiopia seem to have taken better care of than the latter guns. That's very possible, because a lot of times you'll find that black powder guns in reality are better cared for than the smokeless powder guns of the early 20th century, because people knew that if you shoot it, you gotta clean it. Whereas when smokeless powder comes along, well, we might put 5,000 rounds through it, maybe clean it.
Yeah,
and some of that back then was still very corrosive.
And that's kind of a neat subject on the single action armies. A lot of the ones that I've seen that were later, you'll open them up and you can tell they haven't been cleaned in forever. But if they were the black powder frame, you can open them up and they're usually always, you could tell they've been cleaned a million times. They're usually clean on the black powder frames, but the later ones that they were no longer black powder and they were smokeless, like if you got one from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, whatnot, you usually find that nobody's ever been in the thing.
Yeah, and Caleb Blackwell points out it's either that or it could also be that there was a lack of ammo and they just weren't shot that much after they were 20 years old or so. Very, very true.
That is true.
And Randy Wilson said he antiqued in 1860 by spacing off when it was in the sonic cleaner. Thankfully, it looks fairly good.
Oh, no.
That's actually funny. I got a question for you. You're still out there, Randy. I know that was a minute ago. You commented that, but are you using Mean Green, Simple Green, or Dawn dish soap in your ultrasonic cleaner? Just for my future reference, I'm still determining which one of those I think would be better.
I use this red stuff that's kind of like Simple Green. Personally, it's a degreaser. I don't leave it in very long.
I wonder if Simple Green is. I wonder if Mean Green is that much more harsh than Simple Green.
I think it's the same thing, isn't it?
I think so, but one of them is rated for like heavier duty cleaning. I don't know.
Oh, is it? I know that I don't.
I don't even have an ultrasonic cleaner right now, but I need one.
That was actually my Christmas gift last year from the wife. She got me an ultrasonic cleaner.
You like that a lot?
Yeah, I do. It makes cleaning these black powder guns.
Are you still running them through hot water before you dip them?
Yes.
We are talking about originals and stuff.
This is my normal procedure. I take the gun completely apart every time, period.
Okay.
I'll actually fill my sink up with really hot water, and then I probably don't need to do this, but it's just something that I've always done. And since I ended up with the ultrasonic cleaner, I just add that as an extra step. I throw it all in there and let it soak for maybe 2 or 3 minutes, drain it, and then I'll end up putting the parts in the ultrasonic cleaner for about 2 minutes. And I'll have the heat on that too, where it's pretty hot. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, depending how dirty the gun is, I might run it twice through the ultrasonic cleaner, like do the cycle. But it's so rare of ever having to do, because I noticed if I didn't rinse it most of the stuff out and I stuck it in the ultrasonic cleaner, it would get so nastily dirty that you would almost want to change it out and then do like one more ultrasonic clean with a little bit cleaner liquid. But there's one thing I do want to say, though, on the gentleman who had the 1860 with the stuck nipples, be very careful with penetrating oil. It can strip. If there's any finish on that gun, penetrating oil can remove finish.
Okay.
So be careful. You can put it on. Just be careful. Don't try to overdo it to the point it can spill. Just try to get as much in the thread area and be careful with it. And let it soak for as long as you possibly can.
What about
but just be
diesel?
careful.
What do you think about diesel?
I've never
soaked a
personally
lot
done
of
it.
parts in diesel before.
Kerosene. I've done kerosene.
I've never soaked anything in diesel that needed that had any finish on it to begin with, hardly anymore. So I didn't know, that would be harsh.
Kerosene is actually used to harden bluing on guns. If you blue a gun, if you actually rust blue a gun, or even the method that I was talking about, boiling in the water on my preserving. A lot of gunsmiths actually will do that, and then instead of coming straight out, because I just go really hot so the whole thing dries, and then I just cover it in ballistol and do the whole carding. But I know a lot of gunsmiths that will go out of that directly into kerosene and leave it in the kerosene for 4 or 5 hours soaking, and it actually will harden any bluing. It actually makes the bluing tougher. I don't know how, but it actually does.
Yeah. I'm going to try to get through some of these because we're pretty far behind. Let's see.
This is awesome,
Americans.
This is great.
We've had a lot of people in here. We've had upwards of 27, and that's really
nice.
good. But American said, "I hate that red grip." I agree with you.
I agree
like
with
the
you
bright
too,
red
man.
ones, like mine. Yeah,
I think yours is a little too red, or it's just the light you have, brother.
Yeah,
but that red thick is what these Colts do look like. Now it could just be because I don't have another Uberti in front of me. It could have been just that Uberti that I had here. I was like, man, those look exactly the same. But yours looks really red, Garrett.
Yeah, and that's also the light. It doesn't actually look. I was looking at the screen. It doesn't actually look at red to me in person, but the light helps. But yeah, they are definitely red. American Walnut anyway is quite a bit darker than. And especially the older style walnut is a little darker than what they're getting.
Yeah, thinking about it, and I don't know if the darkness comes with age as well.
That could be. Well, no, because I mean, as soon as I work with a lot of American walnut over here, and as soon as you touch that with any form of oil, be it gun oil or anything, it goes dark brown.
It turns.
I mean, there's a little hint of red to it, but it, and it could also be the polish that Colt was putting on them at the time had a little red tint to it. Gina Wood says, "I love your shirt." I was wondering when somebody would notice that.
I don't even know what it is. Oh, trust. Oh yeah, I didn't even know you had one of those, man. Those are cool.
It's a one-off. My wife got it for me for Christmas, and I opened it early so I could have it for
you guys should consider doing a couple T-shirts, brother.
Yeah, and it's not controversial. We can't tell if that is a Smith & Wesson or a Colt.
Yeah. Except for it's a Colt Bisley. Isn't that a Colt Bisley? I'm looking at a very small image of it.
It's more like it's either like a Smith & Wesson Model 10 or a Colt Cobra style grip. It's kind of hard to tell. Dylan says, "I like that one gun you had last." Caleb Blackwell, "Have you ever participated in black powder shoot at Farm and Creek?" No, I've only visited there. I live about 4 hours away from there. Roughly almost 5 hours, maybe even a little more. And I've only happened to stop by there a few times. Not reading that, super sneaky Steve. Okay. Good night, Garrett. Going to bed. Okay, good night, Dylan. Thanks for watching. I know you've probably been
watching for a
long time. Okay, Brass762 says you should look up the Oliver Lee and the Fountain murders in Tularosa Valley, just south of Lincoln County. Yeah, we'll do that. American, he says, "I'm a Wild Bill Hickok fan myself."
Me too.
I am too, as he's one of the few Yankees I wouldn't mind meeting.
I agree.
And Brass says Oliver Lee and his cohorts killed a judge and his kid and won a gunfight against Pat Garrett, and it was never solved or bodies found. That sounds very interesting. iPod Walker's in. Hey, iPod. Good to see you.
Hey, iPod.
Better late than never. American, he wants to see a 51 Navy rifle. I did too. I'm very intrigued by the idea. I don't know how well it's going to work, to be honest, because you can't support the barrel when you're shooting. And I don't know if that non-top strap is going to be stout enough for when you shoot that it's not going to flex down. But it's something we need to try.
You know what we're gonna have to consider too is doing the hook idea like the Remington, so you don't shoot yourself in the arm.
Oh, the
hook trigger. You know, like the trigger guard
the
has
back
the hook,
trigger.
where
See,
you actually have to hold it.
my idea was to brace my hand on it like I was just using a regular stock 1860.
Kind of like.
Yeah, but yeah, you're right. Anything we could do to make that, I don't know.
Because if you held that barrel, that'd be a really bad idea.
Just in case you don't want to put your hand out there. Not at all. Unless I wouldn't be so
unless you don't mind losing
if you slapped in a 38 special conversion cylinder.
Yeah, I wouldn't be either if it was a 38 conversion cylinder. That would actually be fine. I wouldn't care then.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool to see. Landon's in. Landon Simpson. Good to see you, Landon. Glad to see the beard again, Garrett. Yeah, me too. And so's my wife. She didn't like the way it looked without it. She didn't know who she had.
You look like a completely different person with a shaved face, brother.
I've had literally a beard ever since I started growing my first beard when I was 14.
So you're a beard man.
I've always been, yeah. I have too many chins not to be.
I feel you, man.
iPod Walker, will mineral spirits work? Yes, mineral spirits work pretty good for, I don't know about finish removal. I like to use vinegar for finish removal, but I mean for bluing removal. I don't know. I use mineral spirits work pretty good for varnish. What do you say, Snapper?
I completely agree. It's not bad.
Have you used it for bluing?
I have not used it for stripping bluing. I use vinegar as well, just because it's the most non-invasive. Yeah. Like you could leave it in vinegar too long if you messed up and not hurt anything. And
there's different grades of vinegar. Some of the harsher cleaning vinegars, it can mess it up if you leave it like for 2 days.
Yeah.
But food grade vinegar, you can leave it in a long time.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, every time I've ever stripped like an Italian gun, it didn't take very long at all to strip the bluing off with vinegar. A couple hours max.
The longest I've had take was when we did the Griswold and Gunnison. I just did a whole shotgun not too long ago, and it literally took 15 minutes. But that Griswold and Gunnison, like I said, that gun had a gazillion rounds through, and that bluing had been hot and cool. I think might have helped it stick better. It
might have been a better, almost like a rust blowing that they might have used too.
It was a Pieta, and it did take all night, but that could have been a very weak vinegar too.
Yeah. And, speaking of that, the Griswold and Gunnison project about to start up.
I need to send you that block. I've got it sitting over there. I just haven't sent it to you yet.
Yeah, I don't think I've actually announced that anywhere. I have an original Griswold and Gunnison. I bought an original Griswold and Gunnison, and it is a barrel, cylinder, and frame. That's it. And I basically now got a trigger guard for it. An original Colt Navy trigger guard I found that we're going to modify to make the right angle, which kind of sucks because it's an original, but it's an original gun, and I wanted to use original parts as much as I could.
Yeah.
At least era parts, because this is going to be a very expensive gun, and I didn't want to put Italian replica parts on it.
Well, maybe with that original stuff too, it will be easier to heat. And
a matter of fact, I've already tested a little bit in squaring off the trigger guard, and it was really easy. So it
actually works because the modern Pieta stuff, it's so difficult.
I had a plan if I ended up with the situation you guys ended up in, and that was to, like, you know how it comes down in the back under here? I would cut it, not all the way through though, and then use that space that you cut as a way to fold it up a little bit more, and then solder it, because you can solder brass pretty easily.
Yeah.
And then you wouldn't have the line all the way through it. It would be under the grip if that became a problem, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a problem. It's like it's going to bend really easily.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see.
That's going to be cool. I think I'll probably be the only person probably alive who shot an original Griswold and Gunnison when this thing's up, because I've never seen one shoot.
I would almost guarantee it. Nobody shoots them.
I've never seen even my Dragoon. I'm the only person I've seen on the internet that shot shooting an original Dragoon.
Especially Model 1.
Yeah, you don't ever see them.
Especially fairly rare. Let's go over here to Randy Wilson. He has answered our question, or my question. He said he's using L&R brand ultrasonic cleaning solution. Ooh, that's something I have to look into. The thing is,
use any of the purpose stuff, but I'm sure it's great.
The thing is, for years and years and years, we've always done it the way our uncle taught us how to do it, which is you take a glass jar full of hot water out on the sidewalk, pour it down the barrel, and then you scrub the living daylights out of the thing and oil it. And that's how we've, you know,
It works so
done it.
good. I've always noticed hot water, especially with real black powder.
Yeah.
You probably don't even need to ultrasonic clean. I use it.
We haven't got one, but I really want to get into it. I'm thinking about getting one pretty hard because when we buy a lot of these, especially when you go to an auction and you buy a gun made in 1902 and you pull that trigger group assembly out of there, you can't get it all with a Q-tip. There's just no way.
Right.
And so we really need to get one. Plus, our studio doesn't have hot water. So if we were to put water in the ultrasonic cleaner and heat it, then I wouldn't have to be dragging everything to my house to clean.
That's true. You know, my wife got me the one from Harbor Freight, and I recommend it. It wasn't that expensive. I think it was like $50-$60 with the coupon or something like that.
Does it fit your washer barrel?
It fits everything except the Remington. It fits everything except the Remington, because the Remington's in a full length gun.
Piece. Yeah.
In one piece. Everything else, it fits every gun I have except the Remington.
Well, you can still strip the Remington down and put all the little parts in it.
Yeah, you can put all the parts in it and just a frame. You know, I scrub the barrel and whatnot in a sink.
It would just save a lot. My wife complaining about black powder fouling in the sink. Not that she does much, but I know she thinks it.
Yeah.
And he says that he's running at 2 hours at 240 degrees. Okay, 140 degrees. iPod Walker. Have you seen the trailers for 1883 on Paramount? Yeah, I've seen the trailers. Sam Walker's looking pretty mean there. Sam Walker. Sam Elliott. Sam Walker. Go ahead.
I'm confused. I'm missing this. What are we talking about?
Prequel to Yellowstone with Sam Elliott and I believe it's Tim McGraw. It's called 1883 and set there too.
Oh, really? Huh. I'll have to check
Me
that
neither.
out.
I've never seen Yellowstone either. It's not on anything that I have.
Yeah, me neither. As a matter of fact, I've gotten to the point where basically all those prescription services, I don't like 99% of everything on it. I usually find myself kind of using them and getting rid of them once I've seen the show that I want, because there's usually only like one thing on the entire thing that I'll watch.
Have you noticed the more you get into work plus YouTube, the less you want to sit down and watch a full movie?
A little.
It gets a little bit crazy. American says do a 16-inch barrel. Well, we really thought about that on that 51 Navy, because we have considered the 12-inch barrel. They make a 12-inch barrel for a 44 caliber Pieta 51 Navy, which I don't know how. And if you did that and then you added like a 6, you might be okay.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think the 36 would be the way to go, though, because that long of a barrel and being an open top, it might just be, a little bit better.
Well, the thing is, like you're talking about lining it anyway, I wonder how hard it would be to get the 36 caliber cylinder to line up if you bored out and then sleeve it back down in 36.
As long as it would be easy as long as you do it properly. Like line the barrel up with like dial indicators and whatnot on lathe, and you make sure that you're 100% in the center. Yeah. And what's good too is when a hole is already there, 99% of the time a drill bit or whatever you're using, a reamer, whatnot, will actually follow the original hole. Mm-hmm. But I've lined barrels several times in the past and never had any issues.
Okay, I got to go back. Randy Wilson says don't do what he said, as in 2 hours at 140, because he said that's how you antique it. Okay. Usually do 30 minutes. Okay, got you, Randy. Thank you for clearing
I usually only do a couple, like 2 or 3 minutes, because mine, I think the longest it sets for is like 400 seconds.
Well, I was wondering how long it would take to actually clean the finish off, but I didn't even know if it was possible, especially if you were using Simple Green or Dawn dish soap. Okay, if you're using the stuff you're using, is it degreasing it, Snapper? So you got to go back and immediately oil?
Yes.
I mean, you're going to do that anyway, I understand.
Yeah,
is it
yeah.
Like getting air rust?
No, I don't get any air rust issues at all when I take it out. It's almost like a Simple Green that I use. I'll take a picture. I bought it at Walmart. It was in the automotive section, and it was a big barrel, and it's like this reddish, pinkish stuff. It's like Thunder or something. But I use it. I haven't had any issues with it at all. What's nice though is because I do reload 45 Colt black powder. That's one thing that the ultrasonic cleaner is like a blessing for. And if I'll put the rounds in there, and I'll actually leave them overnight sometimes with that stuff, and it'll make the brass look a lot prettier.
I was just about to ask, how does that compare to a corn cob media in a tumbler?
I prefer the ultrasonic cleaner versus the tumbler. I have a tumbler as well, and I just prefer the ultrasonic cleaner.
Well, I always have trouble getting like in the primer pockets, getting
right. Yeah, that's the big thing, getting the pockets, because you end up having to clean it anyways. Yeah, you get media stuck in the inside of it, and you have to fish it out. But I'll throw it in that ultrasonic cleaner and run it for especially with 45 Colt or whatnot. Run it several times and just turn the heat off and let it sit overnight. And the next time the brass is shinier, prettier, the whole 9 yards. By the next morning, it'll help strip the color away on the brass.
Can you read the comments, or you want me to read this one to you? One directed directly to you. I can read it to you.
Yeah, I can't see the comments.
Okay, Giant Purple People Eater 97. Snapper, do you own any AR-15s? What do you think of the A1-A2 style upper? I've been thinking of doing an A2 and 7.6239 with a 11.5 and up to match for my stamped lower. To match for my stamped lower, and 30 caliber can and a good R dot. Talk to them.
Okay, so my personal, I love the A2s, especially the A1s, the Vietnam style. I think those are cool uppers. But the A2s uppers are great. If you're going to go for a short upper, don't go 5.56. I have a 10.5 or 8.5 inch barrel 5.56 and it is a lot of problems. I prefer, if you're going to go that short, go 300 blackout. 300 blackout is great because you can suppress it and whatnot. And when it comes to optics, I am an ACOG person 100% all day. I don't use red dots. I used an ACOG the entire time I was in the military. You can clear buildings with an ACOG just fine. I've done it hundreds of times.
You cannot use an ACOG in close quarters combat. Snapper, what are you talking about?
You just got to pretend the person's really, really far away.
That's what
this is what people don't realize. They think you're using an ACOG looking through the sights. When you're clearing a building, you don't use the front side post.
No. Or if you are using it, don't even look in the sight.
You don't need to look through the sights. If the barrel's anywhere in the direction up to 50 feet, you're going to hit the person.
Ethan loves the ACOG for going.
Me too.
He's used it.
That's the only sight that I've ever bought new from the factory.
And when he got back and he started his YouTube channel and he mentioned that he liked that. He had a lot of internet commandos come down on him.
Oh yeah,
accuse him of stolen valor.
You mentioned that, and I went and watched
accuse him of stolen valor and everything else because he said he likes the ACOG, and he's like, obviously you guys haven't been in combat with an ACOG, have you?
I used an ACOG the entire time I was deployed, and. A matter of fact, you know what? The biggest reason I love the ACOG, I really don't want to go into my personal story a lot, but our truck was hit very hard with a very large IED. The M4 didn't survive, but the ACOG did. That tells you a lot about an optic. And it didn't even change we literally had to scrap that M4. It was scrapped. And the ACOG was fine. And when you bend the barrel of an M4 in an explosion, and it doesn't hurt the optic, that tells you a lot.
Yeah. I'm not an AR.
I never had any issues with
I've had some ARs. I have some AR stuff, but I don't know a lot about it. Okay, I'm a 19th century guy, but Ethan comes back and he shows me this ACOG, and him and I have used, I've used Weaver 3.9 scopes, I'm a farm boy, and he shows me this, and I'm like, wow, it's clear, it's easy to use. Yeah. And I'm not going to say I know everything, but as far as I know, the only thing stouter than an ACOG for sight is iron sights, and maybe not even then if they're flip-up iron sights.
I'm telling you, it is a tank. It is a tank of an optic. Never had any issues with them. They're great. They don't take batteries. And, they take tritium, so at night and during the day. A lot of people don't like the sight on the little fiber optic cable because you can get too much brightness, but you just throw a little bit of tape over it. I personally never bothered me. And they're very accurate. If you buy an ACOG per caliber for an AR-15, they'll have it in different, like 5.56, we're going to block out whatnot. And the drop calculator is very accurate.
Yeah.
They're great. They're great.
Like I said,
they're expensive, but they're great.
Ethan's had more combat experience than anybody I know, and I've known quite, except probably Sniper, but I've known quite a few people that have been in the military.
I just got a lot of combat experience to get my butt kicked. That's about it.
But anyway, he's had quite a bit of combat experience that we don't get into, like Sniper said, but he comes back, and I can tell you this: if he swears by that ACOG, I trust him.
And this is the truest thing. That's one of the few things that I would trust with my life 100% without question.
Yeah. Well, getting back to original stuff, I don't know if I've ever showed this off. This is a personal favorite of mine. This is my airsoft. This is my original 73.
Oh, that thing's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's a really nice gun. It doesn't have a dust cover. The reason I can afford it is because of this.
What in the world?
Somebody at some point, and before anybody gets excited, this is not an NFA item. It is made. This is one is made in 1875. It's really early production gun. I actually have the paperwork from the dealer, and somebody took at the front barrel band years ago and hacked it.
Holy cow!
And they brazed a penny on there that is, you can't make that out, but there's a penny brazed on there for front sight that is a 1901 penny. So somewhere in that vicinity. And it actually works. It shoots really good, 44-40, of course. And this is an original that...
Man, that thing is beautiful. That is a gun that's on my bucket list as well.
Oh, yeah, it's a great gun. Like I said, it's missing a dust cover. I need to get down and do a little work on it because it's... Of course, I need to square up that end. This is a conversation I wanted to have with you, Snapper, because I am torn about fixing that front end. To move it back, I do need to put a plug in the end of the tube there. Yeah. Because I have plugged it before, but it's not very well done where they hacked it off. If I start to do that, though, I'm going to not have a matching patina on the part that I fixed to the rest of the gun. So I've always been up in the air about it. What do you think?
If you were worried about that, I have a couple techniques to match patina.
Well, I can antique. That's not it, but I don't know if I would ever match it right, and I don't want to change the patina on the end of the barrel.
And if you didn't want to do it, I would say leave it. And the way I would say is look at it as character.
Yeah.
Not, and matter of fact, if I had to go back in time and had to choose like the best guns ever in history, I'd go with a 73 Winchester and 44-40 with a single action Army and 44-40 if I lived back then. And
you like my forearm 45.
I do. Garrett, I have to get going, brother. The wife, I told her we're to be about 2 hours.
And we're about there
to go do some Christmas light looking at the racetrack here. They have Christmas lights.
Let's finish right quick. I got 3 more comments. Okay. Caleb Blackwell said, I wet tumble my brass looks like new. That's what I've heard. I need to look into that.
I personally never wet tumbled. I probably should try it just for the heck of it. I always got tired of messing with the media going inside the brass and staying there.
Randy Wilson says, leave it alone. Yeah, I thought I'm not going to fix
I would leave it, brother.
But I am going to put something in there to plug the tube, because it's got to be something permanent so that I can load it all the way.
Use it as character. The gun earned it.
Yeah, and it's actually a really good shooter for what it is. Giant Purple People Eater said, someone's brush carbine, that 73 would be handy in the brush. Garrett, you could find a Maruku Winchester barrel and tube. Yeah, I probably could, but I'm probably not going to change it. I just need to figure out how to match up and cover the end of that tube. That's all I want to do to it. Anyway, guys, I appreciate Snapper coming on here. We have run 2 hours, which is kind of what we set out to do. And I appreciate everybody coming out.
I appreciate having me on.
Merry Christmas to you all. Tune in on the 3rd of January. It's a Monday night at 8 o'clock Central. We will have Duke Frazier Productions on again, and we will finally get Plowboys Ghost channel back. Every time we try, something comes up. But I'm hoping this one's set in stone. And awesome. So tune in then, guys, and we'll have there's no real discussion we're having. We're just going to have a friendly chat. Anyway, see you later, Snapper.
Take care, guys. Have a good night.
Remember, trust in God. Keep your powder dry.
And keep that powder dry.
Oh, yeah, Steven Sheets. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.
Bye.